Hey everybody, John Henry Spear of the Beverage Ramble and Chat. So let's get right into it today on this Wednesday. Start off with March Madness. Began last night with the first four. He had two games last night. The first game ended up being a very thrilling game between Alabama State and St. Francis, back and forth. But in the end, Alabama State came in and ended up winning the game. One of the coaches there at Alabama State used to be an assistant at Auburn. When I think was it Kennedy was there, was the head coach there at the time. So, of course, both schools, Auburn, of course, being the overall number one seed in the tournament, and, of course, the number one seed in the South region. They'll be facing them on tomorrow afternoon, so that should be an interesting game, but I think Auburn should handle them. Tonight, you got two games. You got Xavier versus Texas, which should be interesting. The SEC, a record 14 teams in the tournament, ever the most since maybe the days of the Big East, going back to the 80s, 1980s at the time. So, and then before that, you got American versus, what is it? Not St. Francis, but versus some Catholic school. Forgot the name of it. Forgive me, guys. But hey, you know, it's tournament time, March Madness, exciting time. So. Should be fun, and then everything gets going officially tomorrow with a lot of games kind of spread out, which a lot of people feel that, you know, they like the old way when have all the games start on at least around noon or kind of, you know, when CBS used to do it. But I kind of like it, this format right now. And again, this is going to be the 14th year of the partnership between CBS and TNT Sports, Turner Sports formerly. So this has been a great partnership. I know a lot of people criticize having a lot of the NBA guys, you know, like Brian Anderson, or some of the, you know, like Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith, who don't watch a ton of college basketball during the regular season, but are there during the tournament. Kevin Harlan, who does games during the regular season, but not a lot, college basketball games, but he does some games during the regular season for CBS. And, of course, he does NBA stuff for Turner, TNT Sports. Brian Anderson, as I mentioned. You have a few other NBA guys, Steve Smith and whatnot. Jalen Rose this year is going to be working the coverage of the tournament. Also, you have Candace Parker back again this year. So, yeah, but I kind of like it, you know, especially when the partnership started, when you have Marv Albert calling games, you know, when he was doing it, or the late Craig Sager on the sidelines, you know, doing the sideline reporting. You know, it's fun. And Barkley and Chuck and all these other guys just kind of giving their expertise and opinion. So I like it, but I think they're very respectful of the kids. They're not being overcritical, but I think, you know, Stan Van Gundy is also the former coach. Also, he's an analyst. He'll be doing games with Harlan and Dan Bonner. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. All get started tomorrow. Also, Sports Media Watch, chat number 2. Head of TNT Sports, Louis, I'm going to butcher his name, forgive me, Swilsber, forgive me if I'm butchering the name. He was on a podcast with John Oran of Puck, and he was discussing the future of TNT Sports and what they may be looking at, where their current direction is. Of course, David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, which owns TNT Sports, you know, has been very vocal about how walking away from the NBA was a great move. I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of that message or that comment that he posted out there. And if you look at the direction what TNT Sports is going towards right now, they're getting sports, but also getting sports there where they're going to be fiscally responsible, fiscally reasonable. So, and as I said, it's going to be interesting, you know, come the fall of 2025, what TNT Sports is going to look like. Yes, they're still going to have the NHL. They're going to have some Major League Baseball, which right now the playoffs are going to be starting up soon. But coming in October, you know, still have NHL. You still have the baseball and the playoffs. But we will see with those ad dollars when it comes to the NBA. How much will they miss the NBA? You know, how much will they say, wow, you know, those nights we could have sure used some of that, you know, inventory, that content. But right now, he also talked about, you know, what they're, in terms of, you know, his relationship with CBS Sports in terms of covering the tournament. If you look at some of the other packages that TNT Sports has when it comes to collegiate sports, they have their agreement with the Big 12, men's and women's basketball and football, men's football and men's basketball and women's basketball, the Big East in men's and women's basketball, the Mountain West in basketball, but also not basketball, but football. So they're getting some properties. Of course, they're sub-licensing the college football playoffs. Of course, they got the French Open coming up this year. They have like 5 NASCAR races, but right now their bread and butter is the NHL and, of course, the Major League Baseball, which they will be doing, rotate the League Division Series and the Championship Series. So this year they will have the National League Division Series and the National League Championship Series, while Fox and Fox Sports 1 will have the American League. So, he feels very optimistic what the direction of TNT Sports is going. I also just talked about some of their properties that they might be interested in looking at, possibly the 2 that are out there right now, UFC and also F1, Formula One racing. Now, as Netflix has said, they've shown interest. Well, people from UFC have said, that's TKO, which runs UFC and WWE, and saying that possibly they're looking to maybe split that package with a linear and possibly with a streaming. So, of course, Netflix has an agreement with WWE airing one of their wrestling properties, or maybe 2 of them, I'm not sure. And so far, that's been pretty much a success so far. So they mentioned that maybe might show some interest in that. We'll see. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see them doing some UFC on that network. But hey, but he says, hey, as long as it's fiscal and it's financially smart and feasible, we'll probably end up doing it. So, also, he also talked about how there's a lot of optimism that they feel that they're knowing that at the end they will know that they've done the right move. Now, the main thing people seem to fail to realize that Warner Brothers Discovery was in a lot of debt. Not just their sports department, but look at everything that they have, from the films to their TV networks and whatnot, that they needed to pay off some debt, some serious debt. So now, I guess everything according is looking rosy for WBD, and we shall see. My final topic to discuss is about this whole Jess Hilarious and situation this morning. I guess social media it went viral, talking about her time, and it was ending on the Breakfast Club. Of course, she has basically took over for. She was filling in. They were going through different hosts, different guest hosts once Angela Yee had left the program, and. But for some reason or another, I guess some report or some rumor was out there that, she was let go of the Breakfast Club, and then she went out there to kind of talk about her side of the story, and I think, to me, it was just, I think it was a ploy. To me, it looked staged this morning when they were talking about it. Look, Jess Hilarious is a comedian. She does a lot of dates, a lot of shows, but also she's done a pretty good job filling in for. She's done a pretty good job filling in filling in until they found a permanent host, and then she became the permanent host of the show, and permanent guest host, I should say, permanent member of the show. So it became official, but then afterwards. Lauren LaRosa, when she was out on maternity leave, she ended up taking over, and of course she works in the news side of the show, and I've listened to her, and she's very good. And then when Jess came back from her pregnancy, she was still there, but for some reason there was some tension this morning, and Charlamagne and DJ Envy kind of went back and forth on that, and kind of told us, listen, you're making too big of a deal about this, the perception. Stop listening to what the folks are saying about this. Don't make it too big of a deal. But and I think they agree. But, you know, I think it's good to have that many perspectives on that show. You know, having someone who does the comedy as someone who does the news stuff and you know, offer her expertise. And also, again, Jess is traveling a lot. She does a lot of comedy dates throughout the year. So I think it's understandable why, you know, maybe some of this should have been held private, but I think this was staged, in my opinion, just to get some clicks, you know, some viral clicks on that show. I mean, look, radio has changed a lot. It's not what it once is, not what it once was. It's really has changed. It's really not the same, you know, people are just trying to find ways to kind of keep terrestrial radio interesting. Right now it's all about podcasts and, you know, all these different things. And, you know, to me, I thought this was a ploy this morning when I was watching it. And I thought, okay, we got you. I see what's going on. It's all about content. We're trying to put content out there for people to tune in, to listen. And it probably worked because it got me interested this morning when I saw the news. So anyway, that's about it. Don't got much else to talk about. So, yeah, everything's all good. And that's the latest things that I want to discuss here. You know, with me, anything's possible. Anything's happening. Coming from different ways, different coming to different directions with different content. But anyway, I'll be doing a beer review soon. Maybe when, I don't know, but I'll be doing a beer review soon. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's about it. All right, guys. Beverage Ramble Chats. See you later. Bye.